To put it simply, it's a way of running a business where the value you create has a double or triple bottom line: people, planet, profit, i.e. you're able to do some good for people or the planet whilst making a profit. A good starting point is charities. Charities are organizations that use the revenue they generate to achieve a social objective that's of public benefit, e.g. Meals on Wheels, a service that delivers cooked, healthy meals to people who are not able to cook or buy food for themselves and struggle to survive. The analogy I use to explain social enterprise goes a bit like this. A charity will spend a large amount of its time and money trying to raise funds to buy wheelchairs for thousands of people who need them. Its goal is to ensure that everyone who needs a wheelchair to lead a fulfilling and active life has one, particularly if that individual has no means to buy or make one themselves. This is all good, but for the fact that, in order to achieve its mission, the charity will have to compete for or find funding. There are over 180k registered charities in the UK, not all deliver services however. For more info visit the Charities Commission. Charities in England and Wales. A circumflex the 31st of March 2016. Time and time again to keep supplying wheelchairs. After a time the charity could end up in the constant battle of chasing the funds probably best for another post. Charities are also not allowed to make huge profits. Growth therefore has to mean delivering more services, and so the chasing the funds cycle, if not well managed, begins again and can get very complicated indeed. It doesn't always end well. Enter social enterprise. A social enterprise will strive to be the biggest and best seller of chairs that feed you, greet you, warm you up when you're cold, whatever makes you happy and makes the chair sell, as long as it's ethical, but do so with the banner of a social enterprise. For every chair you buy, we'll give away 5 wheelchairs to people who need them. Social enterprise shifts the onus of generating revenue to survive onto the company, not the wider world of funding bodies, gifts or philanthropy. It can be a lot harder to get the business model right, but the intention is sound, and intended to be more sustainable. Add to the mix that the chairs that are sold are all made from materials that are ethically sourced and/or from suppliers that maintain excellent environmental management standards and don't use any pollutants in chair production, and you're onto a winner. Triple bottom line. People, planet, profit. Social entrepreneurship, according to one definition, strives to solve social problems at a systemic level using innovative, sustainable, scalable, inclusive and measurable approaches. Say what? In the 1980s, Ashoka Foundation's Bill Drayton started using the phrase social entrepreneur to describe the people he funded to fix the world's problems. 30 years later, we use the phrase and its sister, impact investing, to encompass nearly all novel do-goodery. The result is that it takes a couple of years working in social entrepreneurship or impact investing before you can get a grip on who's who and the various meanings that different players attach to the same words. And the upshot is a clear division between insiders and outsiders. This keeps insiders' jobs safe, I suppose, but it also prevents a lot of smart people from contributing to some of the coolest work on the planet. So, in an effort to demystify the world of social entrepreneurship and impact investing, here's a primer. If you're a veteran, you'll recognize all these names and probably roll your eyes at how often the same examples are trotted around stage. If you're new, we hope this can be a useful starting point. Why should we care about this social entrepreneur sense? If you've gotten this far, presumably you are already interested in social entrepreneurship. There's good reason to be. If you're an entrepreneur, you'll be competing for funding and spots at commercial incubators like Y Combinator with social entrepreneurs that have a head start on a compelling, convincing pitch. If you work at a nonprofit, you'll be fighting for talent and money with a growing, exciting field. If you're an investor, for-profit impact investors like Bamboo Finance will be pitching the same pension funds that you used to have a lock on. And if you're a regulator, watch out, millions, and soon billions, of dollars are doing an end around government's own poverty alleviation and environmental agencies by going through foundations, private companies, and sometimes developed world aid agencies. Broadly speaking, to review, 1. Social entrepreneurship is opaque and ill-defined. But 2. It also matters right now and it will matter more in the future. None of that gets at our original question, though. What is it? How can we split up the things people include when they talk about social entrepreneurship? Microfinance. Many of the leading funders of social entrepreneurship acumen, Grey Ghost Ventures, Unitas, Ashoka, the Skoll Foundation cut their teeth on microfinance. In brief, microfinance is the provision of loans, often in the developing world, that are typically at smaller amounts and lower interest rates than existing banks and moneylenders. Kiva, an online marketplace for microloans, is probably the most well-known. Among the other pantheon of microfinance gods are the Grameen Bank, and Nobel Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, Axion, and BRAC. Microfinance splits roughly into three camps. First, non-profit microfinanciers like Grameen. Second, government agencies such as USAID and DFID that underwrote the sector for decades. Third, for-profit microfinance funders like Unitas, which invested in the for-profit Indian Microfinance Bank SKS. The latter are the most controversial. In 2010, SKS became the second microfinance bank to list publicly and make some investors a boatload of money, at the same time that the suicides of some of its clients pushed the industry to the brink of collapse. Impact investing. As microfinance's golden age came and quickly passed, many funders moved in the early 2000s to the work of funding startups with high growth potential and significant social impact. In 2007, these groups created the Global Impact Investing Network, GIIN, to promote their work. Today, this kind of investing is called impact investing. You might also hear the phrases patient capital, venture philanthropy, or social venture capital. That work, broadly, is venture capital with a social or environmental twist. Ideally, social entrepreneurs will get seed funding from individual angel investors, then work through business incubators like Stanford's D-Lab, the Unreasonable Institute, or Echoing Green, then receive capital from seed funders such as the Unitas Seed Fund, the Malago Foundation, and Village Capital. Occasionally angel groups like Tonich and Investors Circle step in at this point. The next step up, talking here about amounts in the $500,000 - 2 meters range, includes Shell Foundation, LGTVP and Skoll Foundation. Moving farther along the funding continuum means tapping deeper pockets like those of Omidyar,